This is Pandora, my 1,000-gallon cloud rainforest vivarium, home to a plethora of interdependent plants, fungi, and creatures that live, breed, feed, and interact in a mind-blowing balanced food web of scientific interest. It's actually also attached by way of a glass bridge to another even larger vivarium above, called Orchadia, forming Pandora's treetop canopy world. The aim of this whole biological project is to study wild ecosystems, and with our cloud rainforest reaching its 1-year anniversary next month, I felt it was time for something special. Buckle up, it's time for a full tour of our cloud rainforest vivarium, eavesdropping on the lives of its creatures, following the drama, the plot twists, and unlocking some of the rainforest's mind-boggling mysteries. Like what laid this mystery egg? And did baby mantises finally hatch from these mantis egg sacs? AC family, enjoy this wild and unforgettable ride, courtesy of Mother Nature, here on the AntsCanada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC fam. Enjoy. This mystery egg, which I found in my yard 2 months ago, has been buried in Pandora and has been the subject of a lot of speculation on this channel. But alas, AC family, this egg is a mystery no more. No spoilers, but I finally got my answer. Something did end up emerging from the mystery egg this week, and it's not what you're thinking. But before we get to that, it's time for something cool. Let's go over our plan, guys. It's a potentially dangerous and complex tour, missioning through our rainforest. So let me show you the path through Pandora and Orchadia's unforgiving wilds. Our tour will begin here at Aquanoctus, the Blackwater Pond. Then we'll circle around through the vegetation and into the upper vines. Lucky for you, today a new secret creature will be joining our rainforest and we'll be able to witness it here. Next, we'll snoop around the Hallelujah tree stump and even venture inside of it to see what creatures we can find. Once done, we'll make our way up the glass bridge to explore Orchadia, starting at the mantis egg sacs and making our way around. Lastly, our tour will end with a visit to the pit, in which our mystery egg sits for a highly anticipated update of the century. Got that? Great. Stick with the tour group at all times. You don't want to get lost in these lands. We're going in. Here. If you look to your left, you will spot the apex predator of the rainforest, Godzilla, our resident juvenile cayman. He stood contently on the rock shelf by his pond, grinning with his little teeth protruding over his lip. All around him, a herd of crickets shared the shelf with him. Crickets are usually on Godzilla's menu, but he was much too full today to go picking off these little morsels. Lucky for the crickets. Look at that belly! Godzilla has been enjoying his Shangri-La of a home since we first introduced him here 6 months ago. I have been a bit concerned, however, because he's growing. Technically, he can live comfortably in Pandora for at least another 8 months or so. But the thing that does concern me is his preferred prey size, which may soon outgrow anything Pandora currently offers, meaning he's eventually going to need larger prey. Soon he'll be wanting larger fish, larger roaches and insects, amphibians, larger crustaceans perhaps, or even mammals. But I'll get more into that in a future video. Now, if Godzilla isn't spending his days basking on land or crawling into caverns below ground to sleep, he's usually in the water. Sometimes I'll catch him submerging below the surface, eyes closed and arms outstretched, taking a nap. But crocodilians cannot breathe underwater, so they can't remain underwater indefinitely. Godzilla must come up for air often, and when he does, It is always such a divine sight to watch. With angel-like grace, Godzilla began to surface. Godzilla will remain in this very position to sleep, exposing only the tip of his snout for his own protection from larger predators that might more easily spot him if he was floating on the surface. By afternoon, Godzilla awakened from his nap. As much as he loves it here in Pandora, he'll be moving into either a giant swamp vivarium or to an outdoor 60-foot pond I have in my yard. It should be noted, however, that if we do decide to place him into his own giant swamp vivarium, he'll likely eat everything he can catch, just like he has in this pond, where he ate all fish. And this has biological implications too. Have a look. Aqua Noctis now had a ton of little aquatic crustaceans and insects, which were loving the absence of the fish that used to prey on them. The fish also used to pick off tiny insects trapped on the surface of the water, like that dwarf antellate, seen floating there on the surface. Simply having Godzilla around these waters greatly affected what life existed around the pond, which is why caimans are known in science as keystone species, meaning their presence has an unusually large impact on the existing species in the ecosystem of their area. Anyway, do let me know what you guys think his next home should be. I'm brainstorming Godzilla's future home now. I noticed Godzilla was staring at something towards the edge of the pond. He was watching weaver ants. Pandora's weaver ants seemed busy at work. These arboreal ants are always up to something and never rest as they skim through the various foliage of the forest. Not only did these ants nest in the leaves of plants, as you can see in this grouping of vine leaves up here, but they are also foraging for Pandora's #1 resource as far as ant food goes: mealybugs. You see, mealybugs are these little white insects that suck the sap from plants and create a sweet byproduct called honeydew, which the ants actively collect in their social stomachs before distributing their sweet collections to the rest of the colony. In fact, this honeydew is not only farmed by the weaver ants, but by many other ants in Pandora. The golden carpenter ants were also out collecting their honeydew in the vines and absolutely gorging themselves. Check out this worker, who has completely filled up her social stomach with honeydew, turning her gaster into a honeydew balloon. She needed a breather before making her way back home. The honeydew that isn't drank directly from the mealybugs is shot out and usually ends up on the surface of leaves, which the ants search for and lick up. Asian bullet ants were also after the sweet goods, not provided by the mealybugs, as were the spiny ants. But with honeydew being in high demand, the ants would actually protect and tend them like cattle. So in the beginning, I was worried that the mealybugs might overpopulate our rainforest and completely kill off all the plant life. I mean, they're a gardener's nightmare for a reason. However, after almost a year, as you can see, the mealybugs have not hindered the growth of all the plants at all. And the mealybug population didn't seem to explode either, like I imagined it might. Something in the rainforest was keeping the mealybug populations in check. And it wasn't until this week that I discovered what. A jumping spider was feeling a bit hungry and began searching his surroundings for something to eat. Anything up there? Nope. Or there? No. Alright, let's go here, the spider thought, as it proceeded forward and hopped onto the adjacent leaf. I've never actually sat and watched these jumping spiders in Pandora actually pounce on their prey, so I decided this time I would follow it until it found food. It was quite entertaining to watch, as it hopped from leaf to leaf, looking around and making carefully calculated decisions as to where it might hop to next. It was quite the skilled jumper. I watched it hang upside down, crawling up onto the other side. It seemed as if the spider was looking for something in particular. Perhaps a fly? Other spiders? It was very engaged, and I could tell I was watching an absolute expert at work. Its set of 8 eyes formed a neat crown around its head. Apparently, each pair of eyes has a different job, with the front row of 4 eyes being the most used, hence the spider turning its body towards where it wanted to look. The side eyes are sort of secondary eyes, used to spot figures and shapes that appear to grow within view, which could signify an approaching predator. So these side eyes were important too. It was then that the spider spotted what it had been looking for. It jumped to a lower leaf, and bam! Captured. As I looked closer, I was surprised to see that it had eaten a mealybug. Wow! This is the first time I've ever seen a jumping spider eat a mealybug. This was a good thing, because with mealybugs everywhere, the jumping spiders would never run out of food in our forest. He enjoyed his mealybug morsel in peace. Surely there weren't enough jumping spiders, though, to effectively control a thriving population of mealybugs. I felt like something else had to be controlling the mealybug populations too. And AC family, turns out there was. Crickets. One of Pandora's most important prey insects always had a liking for the upper vines and asparagus ferns. I always assumed the crickets simply enjoyed eating the leaves, as they are avid veggie lovers. I soon began to notice that the crickets were also licking the leaves and stems of plants, much like the ants would for honeydew. But just this week, I discovered a new behavior. A male cricket began to what I thought was lick the leaves around some herds of mealybugs. But then as I looked closer, I noticed the cricket was chewing. Hey, was the cricket actually eating the mealybugs? I continued to watch. And sure enough, I saw the cricket with a furry mealybug in its jaws. It moved onto another grouping of mealybugs and began to munch away at them. This waxy white fur that covers the mealybugs is protective in nature, but it didn't seem to deter this cricket. It munched away at them like cotton candy. It's no wonder the mealybugs never really became a plague in our rainforest. Pandora had found a way to control them. Speaking of the crickets, watching their everyday minutiae was always a treat. An upper branch was the site of a lot of dating action. Males were busy singing to each other and to other females in hopes to attract a mate, but there were a few brawls among the males. Problem was, this cricket pickup bar was a sausage fest. There were way more males hanging out here than females. But then I noticed a male leaving the scene, and surprisingly, followed by a female. I always thought male crickets were the active party in the courting process, but in this case, the female was actively interested to mate with her pick for a partner. On their private asparagus fern leaf, the female advanced. She's the one on top, but the wobbling due to the wind blowing through at the moment made it a bit of a challenge to get the job done. After several clumsy attempts to connect, the union had finally been made, and the male transferred his spermatheca, a packet full of his little soldiers, into the female. This plug would now remain in the female to further deposit sperm into her, as well as keep other males from mating with her. I was happy to see that our crickets were still breeding successfully in our rainforest. Despite the abundance of crickets, I did feel their taste for plants still wasn't enough to keep the plant life in Pandora under control, especially the ferns. I mean, look at how massive the ferns have gotten. They're just dominating the vivarium now. I'm going to need to think of a creature that will eat ferns, even if it was some large animal we place in here temporarily, specifically to fern whack. But meanwhile, I had a newcomer waiting in the wings to be added to our rainforest. I caught this humongous grasshopper in my yard, and my hopes were that it would help control some of the overgrown plants in our forest. Let's add him in. I allowed him to hop onto my hand, and it leapt. It hung from the top of the vivarium, cleaning itself before proceeding to explore the vine leaves. It began to munch on a vine bud to begin tasting its new home. Quite good. It continued to move and disappeared into the foliage. Eat away, Mr. Grasshopper, and enjoy the available bounty in your new rainforest home. Another creature was also prepping for the feast. Snap, a baby sun skink, surveyed the land to decide where he would begin his hunt. This is him looking at us, looking at him. But when he was ready, he was off. He looked over to the termite mounds below the stump. Nothing much there right now, though he likely had eaten termites here in the past. Alright, moving on. He inspected below a patch of moss, where he also likely had found a past meal. This lizard was clearly hunting from experience. After failing to find anything interesting, he continued on, utilizing his superior vision and sense of smell using his tongue, as well as his ears, for minute sounds of prey crawling away. It was amazing watching how thorough Snap was, hunting like his ancestors did for millions of years. Suddenly, something caught his eye. But whatever it was too fast and got away. No worries though, he knew he'd find something soon. Meanwhile, his sister Snip was watching from atop the stump. with her blue-green iridescence shining in the light. Her tactic was different. She used the hawk approach, assume a high and wide vantage point in the forest, and increase the likelihood of spotting the prey below. I suppose this tactic has worked best for her, and she had thus learned to continue doing it. Dwarf ants ran all around her lookout point. She continued to survey the land below. She spotted a cricket. But suddenly, some creature fell from above, and that was definitely worth inspecting. Down she went to catch a potential meal. Life was bustling all around the stump. I spotted a crab emerging from its burrow beneath the stump. I knew there were several crabs living beneath the stump because I've seen crabs with different patterns at this exact same spot. But when checking this area, we always need to be super quiet because the slightest movement will cause them to retreat. Now, if you can make your way this way, you'll notice there's a bit of a slippery path down here. Hey! There you are! Where'd you go? I told you to stick with the tour group. Glad I found you. Come with me. I have something cool to show you, up on the stump. Let's look. Snap had finally captured a meal. It was an adult male cricket, and the stench of the kill was drawing out the dwarf ants. It was crazy to think that the sun skinks, which used to be chastised by crickets, had officially grown large enough now to eat them at adult size. From now on, no cricket in Pandora would be safe from the sun skinks. I was a little skeptical though, because this cricket looked huge, and I was interested to see how Snap would actually maneuver this meal into his belly. It was then that an Asian bullet ant, lured in by the smell of the dead cricket carcass, approached. What happened next shocked me. It grabbed the cricket by the wing. Snap and the Asian bullet ant proceeded to engage in a game of tug-of-war. Hey, this is mine! No, it's too big for you anyway. Let go! Never! The two disappeared over the edge. Looking in from the other side of the tank, I saw that Snap had ultimately won the cricket and proceeded to swallow it, knowing he needed to do it soon lest other contenders attempted to yoink his meal. The Asian bullet ant, defeated, sulked away in search of another meal. Watching Snap swallow this cricket was truly a spectacle. He went in for the swallow, and I watched wide-eyed as he worked the massive cricket into his throat like a master. His eyes looked like they were going to pop out of his head. It took a couple minutes, but he gradually worked the cricket down his throat. Until there was nothing left but a leg. He did it. now fatter and satiated, Snap took a moment to breathe, then moved forward to climb up the stump and bask. He would be needing the heat to digest this massive meal. Snap's success as a hunter was evident in the fact that his once bitten off tail end and back wound both healed quite quickly. Good job, Snap. As for the Asian bullet ant, it found the other cricket leg, which had been discarded at the stump, and joyfully made its way down towards the entrance of its nest. Speaking of which, AC family, it's now time for something real special. Let's peek into the stump, where I knew the Asian bullet ants were nesting. I moved my probe camera into the stump opening. Right at the entrance, a dry pile of insect body parts and cocoon casings. This must be the colony's garbage site. Let's continue moving in. After some maneuvering, we penetrated their foyer, and I could see a bunch of startled Asian bullet ants, some carrying larvae. We so weren't supposed to be in here, but I pushed on. As I pushed the camera probe deeper, Asian bullet ants were seen rushing by the camera, startled by the bright light. A giant alien had broken into their home, so they were terrified. Hey, there's the fresh cricket leg they just took home. Workers continued grabbing eggs and larvae in their mandibles, bringing them to safety. Hey, there's a dwarf ant. Cool to see that the two species shared the space. I began to feel bad for freaking them out, so I pulled the camera probe out. It was actually quite cool to see so many ants coexisting in and around the stump. Asian bullet ants, dwarf ants, spiny ants, carpenter ants, gnome ants, and giant trapjaw ants at ground level. We also know from a previous sighting that a colony of Asian marauder ants were also nested at the foot of the stump. Our rainforest had the perfect amount now of ant biodiversity. But one ant colony I had my eye on were these invasive intruders, ghost ants. These tiny invasive ants broke into our rainforest, small enough to fit through the mesh, and have established a nest somewhere in the rainforest. I still don't know where they set up camp, but they are a nomadic species, so they were definitely moving around with their hundreds of egg-laying queens and piles of brood. Being invasive ants poses a serious danger to our rainforest, because in large enough numbers, they could totally outcompete other ants for resources, meaning they hog all the food, making it hard for all other ants to eat. Or they could displace other ant species, driving other ant colonies out of their homes, or even just flat out eating other ants in their path. I knew they were mainly here for honeydew, but who knows what else they had planned. I was determined to find out where they were hiding, so I could go in with my vacuum and weaken them. It's time we look around the treetops. Let's start first with something a lot of you guys have been wondering about, the mantis egg sacs. Many months ago, I successfully bred a pair of mantises, and the female laid 2 egg sacs, which I placed into Orchadia, but sadly the roaches and crickets had eaten them. I kept the egg sacs inside Orchadia in hopes some of the eggs were spared, but I'm pretty sure no eggs made it. I still have yet to find baby mantises anywhere. I'm sorry for the bad news, but if we try this again, I'll have to rear the egg sacs separately in a container, then release the babies into Orchadia once hatched. Weaver ants were also up here, still acting like they were running things, aggressive and ready to kill anything that came close. They did, however, share the foliage with the colony of black carpenter ants we introduced way back, which seemed to be doing quite well as these concerning ants. A colony of Tetramorium insolens, another invasive species of ant, introduced into our rainforest via the plants, seemed quite in a hurry along their trail across the wood. I wonder where they were off to in such a rush. Who knows? They probably found some exciting food. I was also keeping a close eye on these ants because of the fact that they too, like the ghost ants, reproduce fast and allegedly possess all the trademark invasive qualities. Thank goodness for now, there was no reason for concern. They just seem to be doing their thing quietly and discreetly up here in Orchadia, generally staying clear of all other ants. Or at least, that was what I thought. I noticed plenty of baby spiderlings. Orchadia seemed to be a hotspot for the spiders. I could also see an adult male huntsman hiding away in a corner, and a fat jumping spider up here. These spiders had a bounty of prey to feed from, competing only with the geckos and the tree frogs. I spotted Miss Piggy, awake early, and Kermit, still sleeping in the plants. Speaking of the plants, I've been having a bit of a hard time keeping certain plants alive here in Orchadia. But now that I know which plants are doing well, I plan on doing a complete makeover in a future episode where I can replace some of the dead plants, like this smaller banyan, and add more of the plants that are doing well up here, like the larger banyan tree. In fact, this larger banyan tree is doing so well, it's releasing these cute fruits. Are these tiny figs? Awesome! This banyan is also host to a variety of beetles, like this candy-looking pink weevil and longhorned beetle. The biodiversity and life in Orchadia is still in development, but I'm certain, over time, especially with the makeover I have in mind, and some more creatures I plan on adding soon, Orchadia will be well on the way to becoming as biodiverse and established as Pandora. But overall, touring through Pandora and Orchadia made me realize one thing: just how awesome of an opportunity we all have to truly have a peek at what happens every day out in the wild. The relationships, the struggles, the triumphs, and the losses. We've watched animals grow up in our rainforest, find a spot to call home, occupy a vital niche in the ecosystem, and cause the rainforest as a whole to grow and thrive. One of the greatest insights while embarking through this Ecosystem Vivarium series with you all is how truly connected all life on our planet truly is. I felt lucky to be on this biological journey of discovery with you all as we continue to uncover more biological mysteries through our ever-growing cloud rainforest. But speaking of mysteries, it was now time to put a close to one of our rainforest's greatest mysteries of all. Let's address the mystery egg. I checked the mystery egg this week and was shocked by what I saw emerging from it. From a tiny pinhole, gnome ants were seen exiting. The nomads had managed to break through the soft leathery skin of the mystery egg and were eating its contents. This to me meant that the egg was now for sure dead. And now to address what animal this mystery egg was from. I wanted to cut into the egg, but you guys voted against it, so I decided to leave it in its place to continue decaying. But this week, Mother Nature gave me some pretty big clues. Not one, but two baby cobras were spotted at different locations around my home. I did not think this was a coincidence. This baby cobra, spotted outside my home 2 years ago, was also seen around this time of the year. So I highly suspect November is baby cobra season where I live, when all the baby cobras hatch from their eggs and begin to venture out into the world to hunt. Perhaps even coinciding perfectly with the sunskink breeding cycle, where the sunskink lizards in my area are at just the perfect size for the baby cobras to eat. Our mystery egg was very likely a cobra egg. In which case, I'm kind of happy this egg did not make it to term, because it would have been hard and highly dangerous to catch in Pandora once hatched. And we pretty much could have said goodbye to Snip and Snap. Mystery egg solved. And that concludes our full tour of our Cloud Rainforest Vivarium. Thank you for joining me on this joyful journey of biological discovery. What? Hey, what was that? Oh no! Guys? We have a problem! Vote in my community tab to affect this story.